Welcome, everyone. This is an open forum from the MINDtheGEPs project with our colleagues Magdalena Żadkowska from the University of Gdansk in Poland and Miguel Santinhos from Elsevier, focusing on peer review and how gender-sensitive practices in academic publishing can help drive systemic change. So I'll stop sharing my screen and yes, looking forward to your presentations.
Thank you. Thank you, Josephine. So, hi everyone, and welcome to our MINDtheGEPs Open Forum. Thank you for joining us today. So, I'm Miguel. I'm an associate at Elsevier, and my team is Global Strategic Networks in Europe, and I'm the project manager to MINDtheGEPs. So, today we will discuss our new policy brief reviewing for gender equality and how scientific publishing can drive systemic changes. So, no slides, just an open conversation with me and Magdalena. Before going into the policy brief, I just want to mention that time really flies and we are at the end of this project. We have our final conference coming up on the 26th of May, so in 2 weeks in Rome, so feel free to register and attend. And with this, we want to use this open forum to share the main ideas of the policy brief. How did we approach this task and share the practical steps with you that can be helpful for your work. After sharing this, we open the floor to questions, so feel free to put them in the chat as we go along. And I'm joined by Professor Magdalena. So Magda, to start us off, could you share a bit about your work and why gender-sensitive publishing matters? You have studied the link between education, teaching, and research. So how does this triangle help us understanding why publishing practices matter so much?
Yes, thank you, Josephine, and thank you, Miguel, for the introduction. I'm really happy to have opportunity and have this moment at the end of our project to meet you again. It is not our first guideline and report, as Josephine already mentioned. We work hard on thinking how to be present in every process and in every step of academic work. So as the assistant professor working for University of Gdansk for I think 20 years this year, I care about students. I tutor and mentor on one hand, working with them, making their final thesis. As the second role, I'm the researcher. So the perspective of with whom and how I do my research is also very important for the topic we discussed today. And as the publishing matters very much, and we as scholars are evaluated by how we disseminate our work. Also, this this step is very important. So while working on our guidelines, our team, including me and Miguel, we were thinking that it has always be taken into consideration as the process, as something that circulates. It's not like only gendering publishing or only gendering teaching or only gendering research. It's like having this kind of perspective, being sensitive, gender sensitive, all along your academic way, including all words, environments that are participating in it. So I'm very grateful that today we talk together, me and Miguel, representing on one hand, two different words because we have different employers and we are public, private, it's mixed. But on the second, from the second side, on the other side, we represent just one community, academic community, and our common goal is not to lose chances, is to make the science be more transparent and make the science develop and be important in the world. So this is like our common attitude.
Thank you, Magda. And yeah, definitely. It's a process. These perspectives matter. And again, it's the idea of ecosystem. So everybody is part of this community, of this ecosystem. You cannot be working silos, right? Everything is connected. So building on that work, linking education, teaching, and research, I want to spend some minutes explaining the context and how we developed this. How did we approach and develop the Gendering Scientific Publication Guidelines, which was the deliverable that then led to the policy brief. So we delivered the main report in July 23. Actually, let me rewind. Let's go back to January 23. So me and Magda and the University of Gdansk, and also the project coordinator, University UNITU, we had some initial brainstorming meetings to decide how would we approach this task of developing general scientific guidelines. So for this, we look into the Mind the Gap community, and we decided to use the project's existing activities on building capacity to training, and in particular, the second Train the Trains workshop. So on this basis, in May 23, Magda and I and our teams, we co-hosted the Train the Trainers workshop in Belgrade. We decided to leverage the gathering of the Train the Trainers from Mind Gap community that came from different regions to brainstorm about this topic and to help, taking out some output from the workshop so that we can reuse for the guidelines. So we developed the workshop into we had two main agenda points. The first one were 3 interviews, which Magdalena conducted with some guest experts, and their sites help us ground the work with real experience, so very useful perspectives for the report. And in the second part of the workshop, we developed a hands-on brainstorming section, and we had approximately 40 participants, and we divided these participants into 4 working groups. The first one, students. The second one, senior researchers and academic teachers. The third, reviewers and editors. And the fourth, gender equality educators. And for each of these groups, we shared the SAGR guidelines, SAGR checklist, and a set of current editorial policies on sex and gender-based analysis. And the task was for each group to analyze what worked, what needed fixing, and then brainstorm on practical recommendations from each of the stakeholder group. So the workshop was great, very productive, and with this output, we then analyze it and we build our deliverable, which is now available on our website, and you can access it and review it as well. So I don't want to go too much into the briefing for now. We will touch base on these guides in the next minute as we progress with the conversation. But I think I covered everything. What do you think, Magda? Anything you want to add?
Just maybe underline that our main idea was to prepare something useful and really helping to act in the modern world of science. So it was not like to make academic profession be more complicated because we add another thing you have to remember. It was more about to listen to special needs, listen to different perspectives, think interdisciplinary, and think also about different actors. As you mentioned, we wanted to focus on one hand on those who produce publications, meaning do research and then write articles, but also to step into the shoes of reviewers, step into the shoes of publishers, and in the end, but the most important maybe, to different types of audiences, including students, but including also communities like European community and local communities. Okay, so I think we can now start the discussion between us. It was our idea to underline that we represent university and public house to prepare the questions that we will ask one the other. So my first question for you, Miguel, I know that you participate in the splendid work of Elsevier that prepare gender reports. And I have two questions for you about the change that you can follow and see in these reports. So first question is, what is the biggest change in gender representation following the outcomes? And the second is about progress in overall representation and societal impact.
Yes, thank you, Magda. Let me share a few highlights from our Elsevier 2024 report. So just for context, in this report, we analyzed data across 18 countries, plus the EU27 and the global aggregate. And this report covers disciplines, career stage, interdisciplinarity, open access, SDGs, policy, media citation. So there's plenty of information here. And the new thing about this report in 2024 is that it's not just a PDF. We have a dashboard where I'm putting this in the chat now, where anyone can go there and play with the data. It's a live dashboard. So with this, to answer your question, so tangible progress, definitely gains in participation and recognition. So increased representation, women now constitute 41% of active researchers globally. It was 35% in 2011. So this is a notable progress, and especially in health sciences. Another important thing to mention is the grant funding equity. So the share of women grant awardees rose from 29% in 2009 to 37% in 22. So again, very good progress. Policy and societal impact is very important in the sense that women's research is increasingly recognized for societal relevance. So publications by women in health sciences, physical sciences, and social sciences are more likely to be cited in policy documents than those of men. And another important feature is SDG leadership. Women lead research on SDGs like education, SDG 4, SDG 5, gender equality, and contributing a lot to interdisciplinarity solutions to global changes. So these are the main, the tangible progress that we can see in data. In terms of the gaps, I just wanted to share that a gap on the innovation divide. So one thing that we noticed that women's participation in patent filings remained critical role. So 75%, 3/4 of patent teams are all male, and just 3% are all female. So this is an important figure. And then another thing I wanted to share is about regional disparities. So progress is uneven. It's across regions. Like in Portugal, 52% of women there are 52% women researchers, but for instance, in Japan, it's only 22. So we can also see this that this is important for to have this view and then to take concrete actions to address the challenges. just to finalize on the gender report dashboard, there are intersectional insights, and this dashboard enables granular analysis by field, geography, career stage. So again, the idea of one size fits all is this critique is addressed through this dashboard. So to conclude, representation is rising, but systemic transformation lacks. Women's growing influence in policy-relevant research and SDGs signals a critical role in shaping science future. But our evaluation of research still has a way to go to reach equity. So, Magda, coming back to you now, with these partners in mind, and from your experience as a researcher and a professor, do you think the current publishing systems and procedure reinforce inequalities rather than close them? And how do standard publishing workflows end up perpetuating gender disparities?
Yes, thank you, Miguel, and especially for the comparison that makes us feel the growth. So for people like me, it means that our work counts and matters. But we know that the progress is very, very slow, and social mechanisms behind are very strong and persisting and active. And by social mechanism, what I call social mechanism are certain views and certain immediate practices that all of us are dealing with and also are reinforcing during our everyday work. So, for example, we still see that there is something pretty stable as an overview, as a stereotype of a scholar. And if we close our eyes, it will be a person of a certain age, race, and gender. And lately there was in fashion to create action figures that were representing youth. And many people also, what they did, they make like the action figure of a scholar. And again, it was like older men. The race was or white or Euro-Asian. So maybe a little bit we see the influence of other cultures entering to the world of science. But anyway, it was male, older action figure. And it pretty confirms that this is still our idea of who we think has the right, who is explaining the world, who is taking like the power to make decision and to say to us what is a fact, what is true, and how things should look like. So we pretty know, because many studies show, that publishing system is also making these things last, because we see many professors that still in the high percentage are white male that are on the first place when we see the publication, when we see the list of editors. So these statistics, and you also, Miguel, were showing the statistics, they are still making the stereotypes last. The second thing, a little bit related to it, is the Matilda effect. So in a way, the feeling of being imposter as a woman in the work of science that like confirms that this scientific order is okay. So women very often find still themselves in other role, like more related to assistance and care. For example, my experience in being an editor of one of the journal is that it would be very rare that a woman would say no to make you a review, while men are pretty immediate to say, I do not have time. So we will talk about the reviewing process in a while, but this is also that what is our auto-stereotype about our role, about our place in science. And of course, some publishing procedures, some how to call it, some decision we make by doing research and thinking about publication strategies are including playing the gender role order still. The third thing is related, I think, very much into publishing. Now we read and quote people from different parts of the world, and we sometimes cannot read the gender from the way they write their name and surname, and very often we see only the first letter of their name. And the study showed that we assume the male gender, and very often, and this is also the trap I'm getting in very often. Now I try to always like take a breath and think, okay, please, Magda, check. Please check what is the gender of the author, not to like give the bad data. So this is also about choosing, for example, the way we will write and decide on having the references in our publication. And fourth thing that came to me and Miguel while we were preparing the webinar, because of so many different webinars you can now find about AI, and I'm also following that Elsevier is creating the AI policies. It's also very important that in a way we shaped artificial intelligence. And we know from many studies that are done that it's copy-paste our attitudes towards gender, and it copy-pastes the gender roles we prescribe to men and women. And it is very seen, for example, if you ask the ChatGPT, for example, to prepare the abstract or prepare something like the review of the literature, that it also follows the same gender influence step that we do, because we taught artificial intelligence who is the most important in science. So this is to show how strong the barriers still are and how big space for us dealing with publishing there is still to take care of, to have more sensitive science, gender sensitive science.
Yeah, thanks, Magda. And that really underscores the depth of the challenge we have. And building on that, going to the practical space. So what recommendations would you give to publishing houses to address those biases you mentioned before?
Yes, so first thing is like keep on diagnosing. So I'm really glad that Elsevier takes this opportunity also for us to just enter, as you will show, to enter and to play with the data. Because this is my experience as the lecturer, that people like data. Sometimes it's like gender driven, sometimes it's disciplinary driven, but we can assume that data are needed for all of us. So like keep on doing it. The second thing is let's maybe rethink how to quote and how to show references. I think now we have brilliant idea to make it more interacting. I really like lectures, and I really like webinars, and maybe we can deal with it thinking about publication when we becoming more and more people that like pictures and visualization. Let's see gender in authors in publications. So how to do it to like make the gender of, for example, authors of references, authors of other studies more seen, just to show that we are different as scholars. It's not one person that is producing the gender, that there are people in different age, from different parts of the world, from different family settings, of different race and of different gender. So I think we can strongly collaborate on how to make it more visible. So in a way, let's try to be good teachers for not only students, but also artificial intelligence. Then being people who give scholarship, who evaluate other people's work, who do reviews, who write write or evaluate or even more maybe mentor other younger scholars to write motivation letter and CVs, be aware about gender biases. Think how to make all these documents be really showing the competences and not be biased by gender. And again, I would repeat one more time, let's think that we really have the power to change, because sometimes I think that we think that, okay, we go with the flow because we do not have any important voice. And on the example of MINDtheGEP community, I feel that there are so many really, really important voices and they want to be heard. So there are many people in the science that it is just a waste that we do not take their voices into consideration. So it will be additionally to what we write in our brief, it would be additionally what I find important. And now I have the question for you, Miguel, and I hope you agree, but maybe you also find some of things I said like too futuristic or too difficult, or maybe I forgot about something. So I would like you to just, in your shoes of the person representing publishing house, to answer the question, what publishing practices are really changing? So what is working, but also please share with us some like constructive criticism, what is not work, or what do you think should be changed?
Yes, thanks, Magda. And I noted a few of your ideas here. So about diagnosing and monitoring, yes, definitely. And then for that we have, for instance, the gender report dashboard. That's very important to have, this data evidence, to have a broader view of reality, right? And the other is mentorship programs. So we also have programs for mentorship to help demystify the role of an editor. So how to become an editor. So we have concrete actions to support women, early career researchers, becoming an editor with training and resources. So, but to answer your question, let me start by going again back to the gender report, because this has the data. And I think the data tells us two stories. So there is an undeniable momentum. Women represents 41% of active researchers globally, and grant funding for women has risen, so 29 to 27. And we have two initiatives, the Sager guidelines rolled out and the message project. I will explain this after. But on the other hand, we have persistent gaps. So as I mentioned before, 3/4 of patent teams remains all male, and STEM equality won't arrive until 2052 at current rates. And with this, the leaky pipeline continues to drain talent. So these are what we see in the data. So just let me, to answer your question, starting with the systemic changes driving progress. So the Sager guidelines rolled out. We rolled out these guidelines across 280 titles. So we have embedded sex and gender equity reporting into publishing workflows. And this initiative ensures research rigor, reproducibility, and inclusivity. And what we learned from this experience of rolling out the guidelines is that this perspective, this information matters across disciplines, right? So a range of perspectives can be helpful to better understand the context and therefore take informed-based decisions. The second initiative I want to share with you is the message project. And the message is is leading co-design and implementation of a policy framework for UK research funders to ensure that biomedical, health, and care researchers account for gender, sex and gender in their funding applications to research projects. So we co-developed the UK-wide policy framework requiring sex and gender disaggregation in results, discussion, and supplements. And this policy framework was officially launched in November 2024, so 6 months ago. And as I mentioned, this requires the reporting in the results, discussion, and supplementary materials. And it compels researchers to confront the gaps and avoid over-generalization of the findings from the samples. And this is especially relevant for health equity. Within the scope of systemic changes, I mentioned the dashboards and the importance of this data for, and again, I want to bring the idea of the ecosystem. It's not only the universities or the direct generals for science and education or the government, or the private sector. It needs to be all the ecosystem looking at the data, discussing it, and making sure we continue to progress and have, more equity. Finally, holistic evaluation metrics. I think this is also one thing that pops up from the report, is that societal impact, policy citations, SDG contributions, multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity, and integrating societal impact into the evaluation, it's something that needs to be further explored. A challenge here is that in order to evaluate the impact or the transformation of scientific knowledge into policy and patent citation, it takes time. It's not like we have results next year. It takes like a decade or so. So this is also a challenge. But yeah, this brings again the discussion about excellence and impact. How do we define excellence? How do we define impact? And to answer your question, Magdalena, about what things can we reform or improve, so over reliance on traditional metrics, as we're explaining, I think the data about patents is also important to look at. So we have 2/3 of patents teams all male, so something that we need to support women with training on intellectual property, in order to close the innovation gap here. And the idea of one size fits all interventions also needs to be changed. Like we are at different speeds in different parts of the world, so we need to tailor, and that's why dashboard and data is very good, that we can see what works in one place, what works in the other, and we can have, a broader view to address those challenges.
Yes, for me, like to sum up what we said, is also, I think, important that I understand and I assume that as we here are gathered, we all would vote for, like, let's make the science sensitive. We see the reason to do it, and we are all for equity. But it also makes us be always active and always doing it. And what I like about what you have said, that we see that, let's call it like the system in kind of impersonal role in a way, that this is also important to fix the system, not only to like fix people and say, women, you should go there, you should do it. And I think that in the cooperation with stakeholders, with university boards and with publishing house, we might expect, we might hope that in some places the system also will be fixed and it will be more sustainable because like our role will finish in some moment, but let's hope that changes we do, the policies we update will last and will be also working for our grandchildren and grandchildren. Okay,
Yes.
so
Thank you,
yes,
Magda.
I think we can go into the Q&A part for now. So we are open with Miguel to answer questions that you will ask, or by taking the voice or just pasting them into the chat.
Yeah, I just put another link in the chat, and this is the policy framework of the message project that I mentioned before. So again, another step to address the systemic layer. So with a framework of national law framework, this is, and when people start to realize the value of have a range of perspectives and the value of that to take decisions, I think this is one good example of how can we address structural challenges.
So we don't have any questions in the chat right now, but I would wondering if you could maybe summarize the key recommendations and the 4 targets you have in the guidelines and the policy brief for us, because that might kickstart the discussion a little bit.
Okay, Miguel, could you start?
Yes. So as we mentioned, we framed the recommendations and the recommendation for guidelines around 4 targets. So students and early career researchers on the first target group. The second is senior researchers and educators. The third is editors and reviewers. And the last one is gender equality educators. And in terms of guidelines, I think it narrows down to education and training. This is fundamental. Inclusive language and representation. So it's important to have these guidelines, to have a framework in order to conduct and to communicate, to science communicate, right? And diversity in peer review. And as Magda mentioned earlier, diagnosis and monitoring. This is also one guideline. And I think that's, you want to add something else, Magda? You want to go
Yes.
deeper on the targets? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that what is important for all 4 targeting groups is still to educate and to not only to educate someone, but also to keep us on an updated track. I have the experience that students that I teach, like gender perspective, are sometimes very like, they cannot understand that they can receive not updated knowledge or not updated information. So they say, okay, if you are right with like lacking gender perspective in studying health or in pharmacy or in other STEM disciplines, how is it that we enroll to the university that is making this gap or is not seeing important data, including like some minority groups or, for example, female respondents. So I think the education after diagnosis is very important recommendation, and we have it as a recommendation for all targeted groups. But then also what is important is to be sensitive over intergenerational threats and characteristics. We know that people coming from different generation have, of course, different rights or tendency or habitus to produce science, to do research, to position themselves towards different audiences. So it also have to be tailored to their needs. So sometimes one checklist, for example, how to publish with gender sensitiveness can be only cannot work because it is not deepened by the data and by the proper educational background and this tailoring to the individual needs. So I think I would put it like this. And also I think one more thing is talking about the word in between. So maybe we can give 1 minute or 2 minutes into reviewers' word. I started with like the response to review. And as we also now are almost finishing the book, the scientific book about the outcomes of qualitative and quantitative study done in 7 countries of our project, we did the proper study among early and advanced career researchers. And what we know is that the amount of duties we are not now meeting while dealing with our careers are like still growing, because we know that we have to publish more, we have to disseminate more, and it's like kind of race to not to perish. And it's not that easy just to link it to some more work-life balance and well-being ideas that I assume can be included, but it's difficult to even go into the dialogue between them. So I would work on the special programs for reviewers, because I think it also helps the precarity of the academics work last, because these are like hundreds of hours of our time that we spend on one hand doing our duties, but on the other hand on the not is this like unpaid work. So I think this is like the big theme, big topic to be discussed between those who publish and those who are addressing the need for reviewers. So maybe we can finish with like some invitation. Let's think how we can create good guidelines for both publishing houses and reviewers to have the win-win situation.
So before we end, we have 2 questions in the chat. One is focused on resistance, so whether you encountered any resistance from any of the 4 target groups. And then one more question about the ways in which women academics are encountering these countering these challenges, especially in contexts where there are frameworks and policies. So resistance and counter action.
I can start with the first question, or Miguel.
Whether you have encountered any resistance, sort of if the mapping work found any resistance to these suggestions in your from the target groups, the 4 target area stakeholder groups.
During workshop, no, like it was like the workshop to prepare guidelines. So we invited, I think, more or less the actors of the change, systemic change. But in general, with the workshops or entering the dialogue about gender sensitiveness toward the science, of course, there are always some people that are afraid of change, and there is the resistance related to like, let's keep the work stay as it is. But I think in this regard, the facts are really those that speak. So I think that what is nice about the audience that is rooted into academic, that we are maybe open to towards new facts, towards new outcomes, towards new studies. So I think it helps to work with the resistance. But of course, as with any change, there is always the resistance. And Miguel, you want to take the second question?
Yeah, yeah. I can take the second question. I just want to add on the resistance. I think having access to the data with these different perspectives is really helpful. And I think sometimes not everyone is aware of this data, and that can be I think there needs to be more communication and accessibility, maybe, because when you see the data, you can find value in analyzing that. You can be better aware of the context. So that will be my take for the resistant question. And the other, I think, role model and recognition, I think, is a way to go there. Like, because we see in data that women's drop off of the academic career as they get older. And role model and recognition and career progression here, I think it's very important, especially not only again the idea of ecosystem, not only for um, academics or scholars, but also for academic corporate collaboration. I think this supports the idea of ecosystem, and I think with right now we need a more dynamic ecosystem, and I think this is what the EU is prioritizing now. Right, we are moving to the European research area, and yeah, I'm going
And
out of
following up on what you have said, Miguel, I think yes, it's important, and it might be one of the final things we will say that, for example, in our case, in the University of Gdańsk, as an outcome of the MINDtheGEP project, we find the mentoring programs really active and well going, and we designed the mentoring programs into different paths. So you as an academic in different stage of your career, and we also from the next year we will invite the academic administration staff to take part in mentoring. So it's not only about scholars, so it makes like more words cooperating. And you can choose the mentoring on your work-life balance, on proceeding your career, on solving conflicts, or building the management competences. For example, when you're becoming the PI of the research project and you want to work on that. And I think now we are also moving into interdisciplinary cooperation in the Union of Universities in Gdańsk. So we offer the inter-academic mentoring, which also include more environment. And I think the next step is also including people working in like publishing houses or companies that have also a lot to say about academic career, that to invite people to give this revise or partnership mentor. And also maybe this is also the idea to cooperate like with people working for publishing house, also to be mentored by a scholar and also to receive some mentoring from their side. So this is something that maybe we can think about like next EU project to continue our cooperation.
Wonderful. Thank you. There was also a final comment that connected to the question about countering, that I want to believe that the limited number of female reviewers profoundly affects acceptance levels of women scholars as well. So what would you say about that before we end? Is there, because I think, Magdalena, you said that women accept review more often than men.
Yeah, this is my experience in social science, that I would work more in like having the balance of men and women in the reviews. But I think it's also about like It's about unpaid work, that we see more women when there is no direct payment for the work. So maybe some contribution to reviewer might attract more men. But maybe there are also other disciplines. This is not my knowledge. If we can maybe check the data, Miguel, about reviewers that are in different disciplines and where they come from, and how we can care about equity also in this regard.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we are over time. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you, and
Thank
hope to see the audience also for our training in Rome, and some of you directly there. So see you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.